Good day, everybody. It's Emar Self-Tute, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Inquirer Show. We're recording this on July 21st, 2020. Hope all of you are well and safe out there. On today's broadcast, we're going to discuss the MLS's back tournament and the continued form of Atlanta United and the original free kick. We'll preview tonight's matchup against Columbus Crew, and we'll look around the league as well as for Major League Soccer and the rest of the tournament. We'll also go into the preparations of various spring sports or winter sports that were delayed due to the coronavirus. We'll start with Beanball and discuss baseball, the Backdoor Cut, the NBA and WNBA, the resumption or start of their seasons. And then we'll wrap up with the Gridiron Blitz, discussing the NFL and their plans for the offseason as they continue to head towards the beginning of their campaign. And then Miscellaneous Department will discuss the deaths of two civil rights legends here in Atlanta, where we're based, and the reaction and impact they've had on a lot of people. So full show, but we'll get through it pretty straightforward. As always, when you follow everything that we're doing, head to the mothership, thesportsinquirer.net, premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You head there, be able to see all the archives of our shows, including this one and other things from college sports in the Metro Atlanta area to our Verbal Submission podcast, which discusses combat sports such as mixed martial arts, professional wrestling, and everything in between. So make sure you head to our site, thesportsinquirer.net, and check that out. You also go to our social media platforms on Twitter and Instagram. It's all one word. It's Sports Inquirer. Make sure you do a search there, follow us, and you'll get consistent updates on everything that we are doing. On Facebook, we have two pages, the Sports Inquirer and also Sports Inquirer. No, two pages, same content, but just different forms. You could go to the Sports Inquirer, those are separate words, and then the traditional way, Sports Inquirer, all one word. So go to either one of those and you'll be able to see all the stuff that we're doing. And if I subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud, go to those pages, subscribe there, and you'll get our consistent updates on everything that we're doing. And I always tell people that it's a great way to follow all the stuff that we have going on. And instead of having to we like you to check our page consistently. That'd be really good. But I know from following other podcasts and other sports publications or sports outlets and non-sports outlets as well, the subscriptions are a very good way to, when you go to your phone, go to your computer, or however you consume us, you get the update whenever we put something up. You go right to our page directly and you're ready to roll. So make sure you do that, and that is a great way to check on everything. As far as everything here that's going on, pretty straightforward, as we've been doing the past few weeks. Been safe, trying to stay at home, be solid in that regard. Things are opening up quite a bit here in the state of Georgia. I'm surprised. We're in Ackworth, which is north of Atlanta. I say Atlanta, which we're only about 30 miles away from there. But I see a lot of people with masks on. I see a lot of people trying to keep their social distance, but then some people aren't wearing masks and everything like that. I have not encountered any of the stories that we see online of people arguing and fighting over the mask or getting into big disputes, or the things going on in Seattle and Portland. I have not dealt with that or seen any of that. We had some issues here in Atlanta a few weeks ago, obviously with the protests and all that, but things are going. We have a lot going on internally in our politics between our governor and the mayor of Atlanta. And we don't get political, but if you want to just check everything going on there with masks, it's been a big story here. As far as sports go, it's pretty much the same. And I will talk about the college athletics because they're going to get kind of cut out of our show. But I speak with people at Georgia State and Georgia Tech and Kennesaw State, and it's like the rest of all the conferences. I'm sure wherever you're listening to the show, the fall sports are being pushed back as quick as they can. We're starting to see the start of the sports in September. That's the plan right now, and that really affects the the Olympic sports, such as cross country and volleyball and things like that. So those sports are affected pretty well in that regard. A lot of their non-conference tournaments or events happen during the late part of August. So we've seen some effects there as far as things go. And in football, it's the same deal. The Technically the ACC, the SEC, and even the Sun Belt with Georgia State, they have not made the announcement of going to a conference only schedule, which the Big Ten has done, and I believe the Pac-12 has done, and they haven't gone the route of leagues like the Patriot League, the Ivy League, and I think the MEAC made the decision as well as of eliminating, or not eliminating, but suspending football until the spring. So we haven't had that go down here with our southeastern sports. But as I said, it's a fluid situation, as we've been saying for months, and as we're recording this on July 21st. By the time we do our show in the next few days, that might change. But we'll see what happens there. But a sport that is back in action, or professionally, is Major League Soccer. The MLS is back tournament. They have been in Orlando for a few weeks now and are playing in the group stages of the tournament. We've seen, and I'll say this: they've been doing a lot of testing, very consistent. We had the initial teams of Nashville and of Dallas. In Dallas and Nashville. They did not participate in the tournament. They had a large amount of players test positive for the coronavirus, so they didn't participate. They are not involved in the event. But the other teams are still playing. I think DC United had a player test positive, but that player was quarantined and they continued the tournament. Outside of that, I don't think they've had any positive test of their latest round of testing, and the tournament has gone on in the bubble of Orlando. The 9 a.m. matches have been interesting, and we'll get to Atlanta United in a moment. They had a bad 9 a.m. matchup against Cincinnati, but those matches, the heat has been very oppressive. You could tell it's very slow start. You could tell the players are trying to save their energy to get through those 9 a.m. matches. And if any of you have been in Orlando or in the Southeast around 9 a.m., that's when the sun is out. It is the hottest, one of the hottest times of the day. So those matches are really tough to watch. But the evening matches that start around 8 p.m., those are going pretty well. And they let the 10:30 ones, because the sun is down, it's cooler by Orlando standards. And those matches have been pretty entertaining. And when we break down the group stage, we've had some strong finishes in those contests. But we'll start with Atlanta United, a team that we cover here on our site. They lost their match to FC Cincinnati 1-0 on July 16th. It was their their second match of the MLS's back tournament. Atlanta went down to 10 men in the 26th minute when Jake Moraney was sent off for a second yellow card of the match. Very aggressive tackling, got caught up twice, and he was ejected from the contest. That meant that Adam Jean, the starting forward, had to leave the contest for Atlanta to reset their lineup. That really hurt the offensive threats of Atlanta. We've seen them throughout this first two matches of the MLS's back tournament. The Joseph Martinez missing factor, it's obvious. The man's a former league MVP, a champion in MLS, arguably a best player in the entire league. He's out with the ACL injury for the foreseeable future. The Atlanta's lacking that frontline offensive threat. We've seen a lot of crosses and a lot of attempts from Barco and Pity Martinez and some other guys trying to get forward and get going, but there isn't a man to put the ball in the back of the net. In the contest, Atlanta, in the first half, Pity Martinez did have a nice free kick that forced a save from Cincinnati goalkeeper Tylon, and Edgar Castillo, another guy that's trying to be forward and score some goals for Atlanta. He had another chance in the first half as well. He had a left-footed strike that Tyson put away for a save. Now, Ezekiel Barco drew a penalty in the penalty box, just before halftime. However, the referee declared that Atlanta player started to play in offside position. So once that was overturned, that penalty, really hurt Atlanta's chances, and it was a very slow and plodding contest. And when I get to the stats, you'll see what I'm talking about. But Cincinnati, give them credit, they were able to find a way to get the lone goal of the contest in the 76th minute. And Frankie Amaya received a pass from Rigatin and curled a long shot past Brad Guzan. And it was a very strong goal and tough save for Guzan to make. And that was his only score. And J.J. Williams got a red card as well in the second half in stoppage time for Atlanta. So they were down to 9 men to include the contest. But very disappointing performance for Atlanta. And that was exacerbated by Jeff Larentowicz as he discussed the loss and what it meant to the team. So here's Jeff Larentowicz discussing the defeat.
The night we definitely created chances, enough good chances to score. We just didn't. I think today is obviously a different situation. We get a red card, we have to take our forward off the field. And then, even in the last 20 minutes or so of the first half, I thought we were pretty dangerous, but not able to score a goal. It is frustrating. I think we do find at times that we're playing somewhat without a forward and we're creating through Pity and Barco. But today, obviously, the situation was a bit different, having to take Adam off the field with a red card. So it's definitely something that we can't continue to do and expect to win games. But today, I think the situation was a bit different. At stake is the hope to get through somehow with a win. Obviously, it's a bit of a long shot, but, that's what we have to do. We have to win that game. I think that the Crew have shown to be a very tough team, so we know it's going to be a difficult game. And I think you're right that it's not like us to lose back-to-back games, to be towards the bottom of a group in a tournament situation, to lose really at all. It's incredibly disappointing. But I think today was a situation that doesn't often happen. I can't remember a game in the last 3.5 years where we've played down a man for that long. So today was extremely difficult, and we'll look to rebound in 5 days.
And that was Jeff Larentowicz discussing the loss, and you can hear the disappointment in his voice with the defeat. And statistically, you look at it, Cincinnati actually outshot Atlanta 12-8, and shots on target 3-3. Cincinnati had more corner kicks, more clearances, and led in possession, which is something that Atlanta's usually in the lead of many of their contests. Cincinnati had 53% of the possession. So Cincinnati played a very plodding, methodical contest. They played with, at many times, 9 men back, or even 8 men back to defend their goal. But they found a way to get the win. And Frank de Boer, the manager of Atlanta United, discussed the offensive struggles against Cincinnati and what the team had difficulties with.
I've already explained it. I think we had enough opportunities against Red Bull to score a goal. This game was, of course, different. After 26 minutes, we were 1 man down. So then the whole plan, what we thought of, how to play against Cincinnati. You can throw it overboard, and then it's, hopefully. And I think after 10 men, we created even more chances than with 11, because they had to come and they didn't have an idea, how to play against 10 men. And I think were more dangerous at that moment. So, when you play 10 men down, you have to hope that, they're gonna force it, and we're gonna try to get, if they force it, that we're gonna get our chances, because they force it. And I think in the first half it was like that. Second half, it was more controlled, and there was no problem. For us, we were just waiting for that moment that will come. And I think he made a great goal, Amaya, but also a little bit with his left feet, of course, in the top corner. I think when he shoots it 10 times, probably 9 times, will go over, or it was going to be a save by Brad. And so that was very disappointed, of course. But I'm not worried about, scoring goals. I know we can score goals, but if you have to put one striker out because you're 10 men down, then it's normal that you don't score suddenly 2 or 3 goals.
And that was Frank de Boer discussing the loss and the offensive struggles of the team. As I mentioned, they have not found a way to get consistent offensive attacks on their opponents. We saw that in the Red Bulls contest, and it was exacerbated even more in the Cincinnati deal. Now you look at the group standings for Atlanta United, they are winless. They're 0-2 so far, and just pull up the stats here. Let's go through it. Yes, so they're 0-2. They haven't scored a goal. They've given up 2. Their goal differential is -2. So they have not done well so far in the first 2 contests. And that's what we discussed or asked Mo Adams about, the midfielder for Atlanta United, and what the struggles have been with the team through the first 2 games. So here's Mo Adams discussing that.
Different games. Red Bulls are a team that come out all in your face, put you under pressure early on, whereas Cincinnati, their plan was to kind of keep numbers behind the ball, stay compact, and kind of look for a breakaway. 2 different games, of course. We weren't, put in the best position by being, a man down early on. But yeah, like you said, I think we've got to pick and choose and find areas where we can exploit. If a team sits back, you have to be patient and move the ball, but move the ball quickly and look for areas in between to kind of break through. I'm not sure. I don't think Columbus are going to sit back, of course, like Cincinnati did. But, we just got to move the ball well and try and look for, the dangerous players like Petty and Barco in the hole really to turn and then kind of use them and their creativity. But, ultimately it's just about being able to, have that movement in order to create, gaps and spaces to be able to pick the ball up.
And that was Mo Adams discussing the struggles of Atlanta through the first 2 contests. And we also spoke with Frank de Boer and the concerns with the start of the tournament, losing the first 2 games, and what that means for a team that is used to being in it. And when I say the struggles, we're only technically 4 games into the regular season, because you remember they played the first 2 games as normal on schedule, and then we had the suspension due to the pandemic. And these group stage matches do count towards the regular season point total. So they've technically on a 2-match losing streak, and they won their first 2 matches of the season. So it's not the disaster of things going on, but they have to realize that things are a struggle. So let's start with Frank de Boer. He discussed the concern of a team that's perennially in the top of the standings, and what that means for the squad losing their last 2 games.
Wow. I'm satisfied with the character that they showed today. Also, when they were with 2 men down, they showed still character. So I'm not worried about that. So no, the character is there. Only we have to do better and score goals, of course. And what you already mentioned, we saw some really good things against Red Bull. This was another approach, another opponent who dropped really deep. We have to be patient, and I think that after 26 minutes you get a red card. Your plan can go overboard, and if it was 11 against 11, I had a good feeling that we had a good result. But it's like that. But I also wanted to say that if you see this game at 9 o'clock, I think it's. For everybody, it's not worth it, to play this in this kind of conditions. You saw the tempo was really, really slow. Even though when it was 11 against 10, it was really slow. And it's no benefit for, I think, the supporters who watch it, but also the players, because, the circumstances were really tough today. So, we have to really think of if it's, it's good when we play on this certain times, with this heat. And during the night, everybody felt quite comfortable. Still, it's hot, but it's different. And so we really have to think about if we want to play this kind of games, especially if you want to entertain people. That's sport about, I think, to entertain, of course, to win and to see good games, but. I can imagine that for the supporters that it was not a game that you think, okay, I'm gonna watch it back.
And that was Frank de Boer discussing the slow start to the season, or the kind of losing streak that they're going through right now. Now Atlanta does play, since they play Columbus tonight on Tuesday, July 21st. And Columbus is off to a very strong start. If you look at the Group E standings, Columbus is 2-0. They have 6 points. They lead the division or lead the group. They have scored 6 goals, have not conceded one yet. So they are playing at a very high level. And a big factor in that is former Atlanta United midfielder Darlington Nagbe, who will face his former team today. And Frank de Boer discussed Nagbe and his contributions to Atlanta and what he's meant to Columbus so far this year.
I think he's one of those players who really fits well in the type of style they play, and I think he can play in every kind of style of play. He's an important figure, of course, in this team with his experience, with his quality. Normally he plays with Arthur or Berhalter, but normally with Arthur on the midfield, and they rotate a lot. Sometimes he drops in, sometimes Arthur drops in the last between the center backs, and he has a lot of quality. Of what I already said last season, for me, he's the best midfielder. One of the best midfielders in the league, and so we're gonna miss him. That's for sure. So he's a very important player for them, but he's gonna be a very important player for any team he plays, and we know how he plays, and if you think you're gonna press him with under pressure, he has the capability, to come out of the pressure. That was especially his quality, and we are gonna try to make it as difficult as possible, of course, for him, and he knows how we want to play, and we know how they want to play and how he plays, and that's going to be very interesting, and also nice to see him.
And now it's Frank de Boer discussing the contributions of Nagbe to Atlanta and what he's meant to Columbus. And facing Columbus is a tough task. As I've said, or when we go over the rest of the league, they've probably they've been one of the stronger teams. As I said, with Zardes up front, the addition of Nagbe, they look like a team that is primed to make a big run in the Eastern Conference. And so they've had a dominant win over Cincinnati and a really strong victory against the Red Bulls. So they've been the class of Group E. And here is Frank de Boer discussing Columbus and the challenges they present.
I think we approach every game, of course, the same, because we want to win. We are, we are Atlanta United. We want to win every game, so that will not be different. Of course, we are depending on the result of Red Bull against Cincinnati. If they draw, we're out of competition. So, but it's important that we have, getting confidence, of course, to have a good game and hopefully a good win. And it's also important, for maybe the rest of the season. So we won the first 2 games in the regular season. Now we lost 2, and hopefully we can ramp up again, with a win, and also hopefully for the rest of the season that we're maybe out, or hopefully we have a good win, and then we still are in. But we have to wait for that. We have not in control of that. What we have in control is to perform well against Columbus Crew.
And now it's Frank de Boer discussing the Columbus matchup that takes place tonight. Let's go down the other groups, and see what's going on there. A big surprise, I think, has been Orlando City. They actually won Group A with 7 points, and Philadelphia Union also had 7 points. I think Philadelphia, we saw from last year, incorporate a lot of their academy guys and had a young squad last season. They needed a year of maturation, and now you've seen them improve and have a strong start to the year. Orlando City, who has gone through coaching changes and other issues, have been looked really good. Now they've had the advantage of playing in their home city, and that matters when you look at it. I know that they all are in the bubble and dealing with the isolation, but they are still playing in Orlando. They had minimal travel. They're used to the conditions and the heat because they play in Orlando. So all of the things that these other teams have had to deal with as far as adjusting to the atmosphere and everything like that, the Orlando City FC squad has not had to deal with that, and we've seen them win 2 contests and had a really strong draw last night against Philadelphia. So those 2 teams have looked very good. You go to Group B, and San Jose and Seattle were I should also say the way the standings work. The top 2 teams from each group advance to the knockout round, and then the top 3rd place teams are in the running. And Atlanta's in the running as well. Now they have to win against Columbus, or if they don't win, they'll have no shot. But if they win, they'll have a decent shot to advance to the knockout stage. But that's a lot of mathematics that we're not going to concern ourselves with until all the group matches take place. But we look at Group B, San Jose, another team that's long history in Major League Soccer, had some disappointing campaigns. They look really good. They're undefeated so far in the MLS's back tournament. Wondolowski getting some late goals or to help the team out in that regard. But San Jose's look at Seattle as well. So they have 4 points. They're automatically advancing to the next round. A nice surprise, and for United States soccer fans like myself, the Toronto. Now that part is okay, but Toronto and New England, they are in top of Group C right now. But let's start with Toronto. We know Josie Altidore. He is out with injury, trying to work his way back into form, and that's opened the door up for Ayo Akinola, who has 5 goals so far in the tournament. That's good for Toronto, their team itself, but very good as well for American soccer. And for a team that is trying to qualify for a World Cup after missing the last one, all the talent is needed. And we know about Altidore, and I mentioned Zardes for Columbus Crew. Those have been the primary strikers or forwards for the U.S. team over the past few years. Throw another hat in there. And I think it was Lexi Lawless was talking about, don't get excited because of an American product, like the American product or things like that, and temper your enthusiasm. I say bull crap to that. We look at other teams. We look at teams in Europe, the top squads, and in South America. And we know the big dogs out there. There's never a situation. I rarely hear any of those fans or supporters say, wow, we have one striker. Let's not think of this other guy because we don't want to hurt the feelings of the initial guy. No, this is competitive. This is sports. So if Akinola becomes a phenom, he's in his early 20s and he's just been given the opportunity. If he becomes a dominant player and knocks out Zardes or Altidore from the U.S. starting lineup, hey, that's a beautiful thing. Or if this gets Altidore and Zardes to play harder and compete at a higher level, that's very good too. So I do not mind at all seeing another guy potentially emerge from the line, because you're going to need more than McKenzie and Christian Pulisic. Okay, you're going to need as many bodies as you can, and Tyler Adams, and those guys are doing very good things in Europe and all that stuff, but you need more bodies. So if Ayo is a guy that can come in and be at least a good reserve even, that's a beautiful thing. So that's very good. But for Toronto, this is a very good sign because they've been reliant so much on Altidore over the past few years. And so to have another upfront option is a very good thing. And then the Revolution, they're undefeated so far in the tournament. We knew Bruce Arena going to the Revolution, it would take time. And that was a bad situation. We saw Brad Friedel and the struggles that he had last season. He was relieved of his duties. And Bruce Arena, who has done so much in American soccer from a national team level to Major League Soccer, you know what you're going to get from him. Pretty straightforward approach, 4-4-2s, things like that. And the organization of New England is much better, as we've seen over the past few years. So it's taken him some time to get the team improved in that regard. And we've seen that from the squad with so far in the MLS is Back tournament. We move on to Group D, and Minnesota, Salt Lake, Kansas City. I think those teams are going to be right near the mid-level to the top of the Western Conference when we get to it. And we've kind of seen a reflection of that in the tournament. All of them played 2 matches. Salt Lake and Minnesota have 4 points, and KC has 3 points. So that's pretty straightforward what we've seen there. We've gone over Group E, which includes Atlanta United. And then finally, we rounded out with Group F with Portland and Los Angeles. These teams are I think they're going to be the best teams in the Western Conference. LAFC, especially if you get Carlos Vela back, who's not participating in the MLS's Back tournament, but you look at their squad, and especially with the tremendous performance of Diego Rossi with the 4 goals against LA Galaxy in El Clasico, East Coast version of El Clasico, they're going to put up a lot of goals and a lot of points. Defensively, they lacked last year quite a bit, and that's what was their ultimate undoing. Defensively, they had so many lapses, but offensively, when you have that firepower and you have that aggressive style that they play with, and Bradley, a solid manager, they're going to put up a lot of goals. And if you put up a lot of goals, they've already scored 9 so far in only 2 games for the MLS's Back tournament. So when you have that, you're going to be in a pretty solid position. And then Portland, we look at that squad. They've been a consistent team over the past few years as well. They have 6 points. They lead the group right now as we record this. And LAFC has 4. The Dynamo have 1 point. And the Galaxy, and to be fair, they're missing Dos Santos and Chicharito. They're not playing in the MLS's Back tournament. Those are probably their 2 top players, so they're not involved in it. So you have to acknowledge that. They should be a playoff squad. But that was a very disappointing performance that they had against LAFC. But I'm glad the tournament is back. Just some other miscellaneous notes. The Adidas logo, we've discussed that before. It's so obnoxious just to have that right in the middle of the field. We're used to seeing that in some other sports, but not football, not soccer. So that was bizarre. But I like the setup. I'm kind of mixed on the crowd noise. I've been watching the English Premier League, and when the Bundesliga, when they were up and running, or with the resumption of play, they had the crowd noise, and I didn't mind it. I'm used to it. But I also enjoy when the broadcast is on ESPN, and they don't have the crowd noise. And you get to hear the players actually talking, a lot of Spanish being spoken. I like hearing that. And I like communication as far as what we go. Because I think when you watch on television, the crowd noise and just a lot of the broadcast is, especially when you see football and basketball, I'm interested to see how those broadcasts go off when you have those going on. The broadcasters speak a lot. There's a lot of motion activity. Soccer, there's more downtime. So that allows for about 10, 15 seconds sometimes of just no talking from the announcers if there's a development of a play going on. So I like hearing the players talk and the coaches talk. They did a very good job of when you do the hydration breaks, when the coaches are getting time to speak with the players while they're getting water. I like that you're able to hear the coaches instruct the players. I don't know how long that's going to last, but being able to hear the managers discuss the strategy with the players, that's been pretty good kind of thing that they found. And they don't intentionally record the coaches. It's not part of the deal, but they have all the microphones on the field, and there's no crowd, so there's a lot of silence. That allows for you to hear the coaches more often or clearer. So I've enjoyed that aspect of it. And just overall happy to have the league back up and running and playing. And we'll see what happens as we move on from there. We're going to transition now over to Beanball and the baseball portion of our show. Major League Baseball, they start their season on Thursday, July 23rd with the Yankees and the Nationals. They kick off the season. I watched some of the Yankees and Mets scrimmage that took place this past weekend on television because I wanted to see how the broadcast would be. I think baseball is a sport that crowd noise does help. It's good energy, but it's not the biggest thing. Football, I think crowds do have an impact as far as players and trying to hear each other and things like that. Baseball, if you've played baseball like we all have at some point, it's a pretty quiet game already. So I don't think the crowds not being there is a major issue. And they play some of the organ music and the player with their walk-up song, so it's not in complete silence. But I think the games will be okay. I'm interested to see how the pitchers do because I saw pitchers throw more than I thought. We saw some guys. I think Porcello, he pitched about 5 innings, I think, for the Mets, and I saw some other guys going 4 or 5 innings. I was very surprised by that in a good way. So that means the pitcher's arms, and not all of you're not going to see the Max Scherzer 130 pitch effort opening day or opening weekend for the Nationals. You might not see that all year. I think guys are going to preserve their arms and try to work their way back into it. But I always get concerned with this type of startup with the pitchers and how their arms are going to do. And so far, I think we've seen some of these scrimmages and things like that. The pitchers are further ahead than I thought. Hitters are going to take time because they need timing as far as hitting and all of that stuff. I don't think we might see some sloppy baseball because what I've heard from Atlanta Braves camp, which we have here in Atlanta with the Sports Inquirer, that the practices is not like a normal spring training or summer training, whatever you want to call it now in July, where we see a lot of infield drills, you see a lot of throwing drills, things like that, working on hitting the cutoff man and all those defensive aspects of the game that get worked on quite a bit throughout a spring training or summer training. Just with the rules and regulations and the way they have the camps set up, they only have one field. They're practicing on that one baseball field. So they are not working on defense as much as they normally do. So I think if you see some sloppy baseball, some errors, or some bad throws, I think they'll be expected over the first part of the season. I'm trying to think of anything else that I noticed that was really different than normal. I thought it looked fine. The announcers, I know that they're not at the stadium. At least the ESPN guys weren't. I think what they're going to have is a local broadcast. They may do the broadcast from the stadium or maybe from the studio. I don't know how they're doing. They may have to do it remotely. That's rough because when you're watching baseball, you want to be at the ball field because it is important to see kind of where the outfield is lined up and what the strategies are. So you want to have that going. But I think that they're going to be fine as far as that goes. It's a new normal. And I think for this year, we're just going to have to accept that the normal rules or the way we watch and consume the sports is going to be different. So I didn't mind that at all as far as watching the broadcast. A broadcast that may be different in good or bad ways is when the NBA and WNBA, when they start going up, and they are in their training camps right now. And so far, I don't think they've had too many positive tests. They've been in their respective bubbles. The WNBA and IMG in Florida, IMG Academy, and then the NBA in Orlando as well, Walt Disney World, the complex. Really not much news to report as far as those leagues go. We did find out that the regular season awards, such as MVP, Rookie of the Year, all of that stuff, will not be impacted by these matchups in the bubble, and that's fair because not everyone is able to play and participate in those contests. So if you want to have your LeBron and Giannis MVP debate or your John Morant, Zion Williamson debates, those are cool, and we may do those. Well, personally, my MVPs are Giannis and Morant, but for my few cents into the debate, when we get towards the start of the NBA season, I'll do my regular season awards and I'll break that down a little bit further, but I'll throw it out there. I think those deals are going to be pretty straightforward. But once again, as I've been saying, with similar to baseball, basketball, if you watch NBA Summer League, that's gonna be the best comparison I can think of. Because those games, people do go to those games, but it's not a lot of people, relatively speaking, compared to a normal NBA regular season game. I think those contests, when they get back to playing, aren't going to be too bad. When it's really going to hit you, as far as that goes, as far as the NBA and WNBA as well, when you get to the postseason and the playoffs, and then the NBA finals, that's where you get the really good crowd energy. If we see the Lakers and the Bucks in the NBA finals from Orlando, that's going to be a weird feeling at first, and it's going to be really quiet, and that's going to be interesting to see how that goes. And a lot of guys, actually, I just saw the scroll on ESPN. They tested more than 300 players in the NBA, and no positive tests. So that's a very good thing. And Victor Oladipo for the Pacers, he's looking to come back to the team. Pacers are an interesting squad. So we'll do our previews a little bit further and I'm holding off on previews and predictions. In our next show on our Thursday broadcast, we'll do an MLB prediction because they are actually in season or about to be in season. All the players have been in camp and everything like that. But for basketball, we've had so many transition. Well, we've had guys like Zion. He left the bubble. I think he was dealing with a family matter. I think there was another player that I'm blanking on right now that had to leave the bubble to deal with, and I should know the name of the player, but it was a player on a playoff team, and he had to leave because he's dealing with a family matter as well. I can't make predictions right now when we don't know when a player is going to have to deal with that type of scenario, or unfortunately, if a player does test positive for the virus and he has to leave the team and deal with this quarantine and all that, it's hard to predict that, and I don't want to put bad karma out there and name a player from a major contender for championship. Russell Westbrook, we've already seen that, and thankfully he's recovered and he should be back on the squad. And for the Houston Rockets, the guard, the all-star for the team, former MVP. So he's going to try to work his way back into the rotation for the Rockets. I can say that because he did have the virus. But what if someone like a Russell Westbrook contracted the virus in the middle of the regular season or middle of the playoffs? That may eliminate the player from the rest of the playoffs, rest of the season, and that really affects your predictions as far as what can happen. Now, you can kind of say it's similar to an injury, which I can see that acknowledgement, but it's just tough to make these predictions. But thankfully, so far, the players, I haven't heard any WNBA. I think there have been maybe one or two positive tests here and there, but nothing to really shut down those camps as far as WNBA and NBA, so good stuff there. We move on to the Gridiron Blitz. Let's discuss some NFL football. Looks like we may not have preseason games. The NFL made a proposal to the NFLPA for no preseason contest, so the players have to look at it and approve it and go through the negotiations. I like preseason games for the sake of building your roster. I'm kind of hypocritical in this regard. I advocate for preseason games because I want to see the guys, the reserves, the undrafted rookies, or even the rookies for that matter, be able to get some playing time and develop themselves before the regular season starts. But I also don't watch the games themselves. So I say to keep preseason, but don't watch the games. So I'm not the best advocate maybe of preseason football because I have two perspectives on it. But I think that for your star players on your respective teams, they're not going to play that much in the preseason anyway, even before all of this happens, as far as our new off season. So I don't really think it affects them, but it's going to affect the reserves on your team or even your rookies, from your Joe Burrow and Tua's and Chase Young's at the very top of the draft, all the way down to your 7th rounders and your undrafted free agents. Their first action of football may be a regular season contest. Even if you're the Randy Moss and Lawrence Taylors of the world who had, or Eric Dickerson's dominant rookie campaigns, even those guys, you need at least some preseason games to get acclimated. So I think those guys, if you expect your rookie to have a strong impact on your team, that's going to be very tough for them if there's still no preseason. But as I mentioned with all the other sports, we have to adjust and accept it. I think ultimately in the end, especially when we get that 17th game in to the regular season, preseason will never be eliminated completely. because one, it still is an economic moneymaker for the owners. I don't think if you remember back in the 70s, 1970s, before I was even born, they would play up to 6 preseason games. Imagine trying to have that go on right now in 2020. You tell a player play 6 preseason games. That's not the case. These players come in very organized as far as their health and knowing how and with their bodies. They come in. Most of them come into camp in shape or in very good conditions to get into shape very quickly. So you don't have guys that sit around the off season like some of our older generation players did, or they weren't training as much as they were in the off season as they do now. So the not having the 6 games aren't necessary, but I think you still need a game or two. And I've always said this, and we'll move on from the preseason stuff. If you don't want to see your star player play, just don't play him. And I don't get mad at a coach or an organization for not playing a player. I remember years ago when Damian Tomlinson, the Hall of Fame running back for the Chargers and some other franchises, he would not take a snap in the preseason. And people get mad. Why doesn't he play? This, that, whatever. I'm like, look, if the organization doesn't want to play him, doesn't want to see him hurt, that's their right. That's their choice. And I understand that. And that's what they need to do. Remember, Ezekiel Elliott, he doesn't really play any preseason games. Because if you're going to give the ball to a guy 200 to 300 times a year in the regular season, you already know their body's going to get beaten up. No need to have that happen in the preseason. But if you want your backup running back or your backup quarterback or lineman to get acclimated or get themselves in condition, because once the regular season starts, those guys aren't going to see the field much if you have some healthy roster. So you want them to get in-game action as much as you can. So I think that you'll never see the preseason for football ever eliminated completely, but adjustments will be made. And Antonio Brown, he announced his retirement again. I don't think he's going to retire. There's going to be another squad. I think what's going to happen is once the preseason starts, he'll get a suspension because of all the off-field stuff that he's had to deal with. I think it'll be maybe 4 games, 8 games, whatever the deal is. And he'll appeal it, and they'll get knocked down. So he'll end up having to sit out maybe the first 6 games of the regular season. Seattle, Baltimore, Tampa, all the usual suspects we've heard of him maybe going to in the offseason. One of them will sign him. It'll be a low-ball deal, pretty much pay per game type of deal. He's got a family. He has kids. And I'm not a father, but I have friends and family that are fathers. Kids cost money. So, and I know he's made a lot of money in his career and all of that stuff, but the guy, one, he loves the limelight. He loves the fame. If you think he's going to sit out a regular season completely when all these other guys, when the Michael Thomases and Julio Jones and Nuke Hopkins and all these other wide receivers are getting the attention of the world, and he's just going to sit back and do nothing. When he sees Tom Brady doing his thing in Tampa, his best buddy, all that stuff, you think he's just going to be sitting in his home in Florida, wherever he lives, like, oh, you know what, I'm content. And then he's look at the bank account and realize, even at 50%, I could bring in a lot of money. Please, he's going to come back and play. I think he's just doing this now, we've seen him change his mood a lot of times. So, I mean, I hope he gets help, and I think he may need help. I'm not a psychologist, but we've seen his actions over the past few months. So hopefully he gets that taken care of, and then if he gets on the field, and a guy, he's a future Hall of Famer, which is, we're saying all this guy, when he's healthy and when he's right, is still a top 5 receiver in the league. Some would argue he's the best receiver in the league when he's playing. That type of talent's just not going to sit back and not play. So we'll see what happens there. And then finally, Miscellaneous Department. We'll wrap up the show here. We lost 2 legendary figures in the civil rights movement for Black Americans, and really for all Americans, I should say. Over this past weekend, we lost Minister C.T. Vivian and Mr. John Lewis. We've seen both those, as a black man, both those guys were very instrumental in a lot of things that I get to do in my life. as far as voting and living my life as a independent, free human being in the United States of America. So those gentlemen were legendary and were very impactful on all of our lives. And just being here based in Atlanta, both of those men were not from Atlanta initially, but made their impacts or made their presence felt here in the city. John Lewis, originally from Alabama, went to college in Tennessee, but we know about him and his involvement with Selma and with Dr. Martin Luther King and Mr. Vivian as well. Both those gentlemen were right in the thick or in the middle of the civil rights movement and were close confidants of Martin Luther King and everything that went on there. And I said, Mr. Lewis, he ended up moving to Atlanta and represented the city as a House representative as in there for more than 30 years. Or close to 30 years. He was a very strong presence here in the city. You drive around, you see roads named after him. He was a very major presence in a lot of things that we have going on. So his condolences to him. And then Mr. Vivian as well, Minister C.T. Vivian. His home he's from the Midwest, but home made a base here in Atlanta or in the Southeast and did a lot of good things as well. And it's been good in a way. Well, in their past, they're both older gentlemen dealing with health issues. So you want to be very sensitive to that regard. But and both of them were still very active and in there as much as they can be. I mean, I saw Mr. Lewis even up to about a month ago still speaking and still doing interviews, and we saw him with a lot of protests with Black Lives Matter, him being among the people, and that's something he was very proud of, a legacy that he wanted to leave as far as the, I guess, good bad things or civil unrest and questioning a lot of stuff and fighting for your rights. So he was very much involved. Black Lives Matter. I mean, you look at that's pretty much just an extension of stuff that he was championing in the 60s. So I was very glad that he was able to be of good mind and spirit and see his movement and Minister Vivian as well, their movement still taking place right now. As I said, we don't get too political here, and I don't give my opinion much on the Black Lives Matter. And if it ties to sports, we discuss it a little bit. But I think if you see those two gentlemen, and all within the weekend, I mean, I woke up Saturday morning and heard about the passing of Mr. Lewis and Mr. Vivian as well. So it was really all within a few hours on Saturday. I heard about it. I'm sure all of you as well. So just wanted to acknowledge those gentlemen and their impact on the world and everything like that. So that concludes our show today. Thanks for listening. And if you want to follow everything that we're doing, head to our site, sportsinquirer.net. You know all our social media platforms. Check those out. And until next time, good fight, good night, and be safe.